Well, look up. No more running from the bad guy. I'ma stare him in the eye like, what's up?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to my weekly show of Insights on the Survivor. Ooh, not trying to show my business, y'all. Don't look at that. I am your host, PJ. I don't do this a lot, so I guess I'll start putting that out there. I am a trauma-informed motivational life coach who helps individuals deal with overcoming trauma that they've had to endure throughout their life. I'm also a grief coach who helps with parents who have lost children, and this is a platform that I also use to kind of guide everyone in the way of how I went through my survival story. And this is a solo episode where I'm going to discuss something that is really, really, really needed, which is a safety plan. A lot of us leave abuse not knowing what we're going to do. We don't really have a plan. Probably never even heard of a safety plan. So that's what this episode is about. But before we get started, I want to give everyone a very real and a very necessary trigger warning. This episode includes descriptions of domestic violence, emotional abuse, and deeply personal processing of escaping an unsafe relationship. It'll be talking about physical assaults, financial abuse, and the terrifying uncertainty that comes with leaving everything behind. If you're not in a place to receive this right now, that's okay. Take a breath, come back to it when or if you're ready. Your nervous system doesn't have to be pushed beyond its edge to prove anything to anyone. This episode is personal, it's raw, and it's a piece of my truth that I know someone out there will need to hear. Today, I'm talking about the moment that I walked away from a violent marriage with absolutely nothing in my hands and 3 children. But everything I left behind was worth what I had to go through to find my peace. This title isn't dramatic, it's literal. I left with nothing but my children, my trauma, and a silent scream for something better. And somehow in that chaos of that decision, I discovered something I never thought I'd feel again. The freedom to reclaim my life, or ever, honestly. I've never felt freedom. What felt like the end was actually the beginning of the most important chapter of my healing journey, which was the first step out of that door. So when I was finally fed up, when the beatings, the betrayal, and the stolen money, the psychological torment, and all of that began to kind of blur into one long scream and just build up inside of my chest. I had already been in this marriage, 10, 12, well, in the relationship for 12 years, in the marriage for 10. And this was just 12 years of shrinking myself, trying to survive without completely disappearing. I had to rationalize it, prayed for change, begged for mercy. I even blamed myself so many times. And then I realized that it was no longer livable. I was just tired. I was done. Done surviving, done pretending, done being afraid in my own home. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a dime in my pocket, but I had children. And I had a fire inside of me that refused to go out. I packed what little I could and made the decision that shocked a lot of people, including myself. I moved to Alaska. Yes, to Alaska. I didn't know anyone there, just one person. I didn't have a job, a car, no safety net, no clue how we were going to make it. But I did what I did what I had to do. And I believed that I deserved better. So within the first week of me arriving, I had a full-time job, a roof over my head, a car to get around, and a school for my babies. I didn't wait for certainty. I leapt into fear, and I dared it to break me. And in that leap, I found strength. I didn't have a safety plan in place when I left, but that decision to walk away from trauma into the unknown, that was the first real act of love I'd given to myself or to my children ever. So why planning your exit matters? Because it is important to plan your exit. I was lucky. A lot of us are not. A lot of us are more lucky than I was to have a lot more to go with. But I didn't have anything, and it was my drive. It was my motivation that kind of kept me and put me in a position to be able to survive without dealing with him or my family or anybody. So even though my story ended in survival and empowerment, I don't share that to suggest that you should just leave without a plan. I got lucky. Too many survivors, they don't get lucky. Leaving an abuser or an abusive partner is often the most dangerous point of the relationship. That's when the abuser feels their control is slipping away, and they can become very unpredictable. They can become violent, even lethal. There are so many people who try to leave, and it costs them their lives. Planning your exit isn't carefully. Planning your exit carefully, no matter how hard or slow it feels, isn't about weakness. It's about strategy. It's about staying alive. Your life, your children's lives, your future. They are all worth it. Taking time to protect yourself, taking time to make sure that you do things the right way, it's all worth it. In my situation, I was lucky because when I decided to go, he was in jail. So I just took advantage of his opportunity to get out. But if he wasn't in jail, I don't know what would have happened or how I would have gotten away from that situation. And having a plan doesn't mean you need to know everything or wait until things are perfect. It means you take small steps that build towards safety. It means gathering documents, understanding your digital privacy, knowing where you could go in an emergency, and preparing yourself emotionally for what might come. It doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're strong enough to think ahead, even when you're in pain. And trust me, when the day comes that you say, I'm done, you'll thank yourself for every piece of that plan. It's not just about leaving, it's about leaving smart and staying safe for you and for whoever you take with you, because it might not be your children. You might take care of your parents. It could be anybody that depends on you. You're going to thank yourself for doing it in this way. Now, like I said, I was lucky. Not everybody is so lucky. So what you get from this episode is, I'm going to walk you through what I wish someone had told me. I'm not here to shame anyone who hasn't made a plan because, again, I didn't have one either. I just left. But I am here to say that you don't have to wait until you are desperate or forced to run. You can start quietly, privately, and safely preparing to take your life back on your own terms. You deserve that much. And if nobody has ever told you that before, let me be the first. I'm going to share everything that I've learned, not from a textbook, but from lived experience. I'll guide you through what to gather before you leave, how to protect yourself online, and what to do if you have to leave today with no notice, and what life looks like on the other side. And more importantly, you'll know that it is possible. It definitely is not easy. It's not fast, but it is possible. You're not broken, you're not crazy, and you are not alone. So just stay with me, because this episode might be a lifeline that you didn't know you needed. So first, let's understand why it's so hard to leave. Because you know that line, those words that that triggers me. Though I think that triggers me more than most of the things I've lived through, is when people say, "Why didn't you just leave? Why didn't she just leave? Why didn't he just leave?" Like walking away from abuse is that easy. That's as easy as walking out of a room. That's the question. That question alone reveals how much people still don't understand about trauma, control, or survival. The truth is, leaving isn't about packing a bag and walking out the front door. For survivors, especially those with children, it's about calculating. It's about calculating risk, not hope. It's wondering whether the moment you leave is the moment your abuser snaps, and that's it. It's not just fear of starting over; it's fear of surviving the attempt, of not surviving the attempt. I'm sorry, because again, not everyone survives if they try to leave. Emotional abuse rewires your brain to believe that you can't survive on your own. Psychological abuse tells you that no one will believe you, no one will help you, and that you're nothing without them. Then there's the financial reality. A lot of survivors don't have access to money, credit cards, or even their own bank accounts. Some don't even have their own identification. They don't have an ID, nothing to show who they are. And really, when you've been financially isolated for so many years, how are you supposed to just get up and leave with no car, no job, no savings, and kids? How? Add that to fear of custody battles, losing your child, being blamed or not believed in court, and the threats from your abuser often make it about taking everything. They always say, okay, you want to leave me? Then I'm taking the kids. I'm taking the house. I'm taking the car. You don't have anything. If you dare to leave me, you will be without anything. Because, unlike me, a lot of abusers won't even allow their partners to work. So you're in a relationship, say you're in a relationship for 12 years with no work experience. All you have is a high school diploma under your belt and raising kids in the house. That's terrifying. And these are real fears. And they don't just go away because you're tired of being abused. Leaving requires more than just courage, it requires strategy, support, and access. And let's be honest, most of us didn't have any of what we needed when we were in the relationship trying to survive behind closed doors. We didn't have any of that. So how are we going to have that when we leave? We don't have any support. Access, that would have been there when we were being abused. So, you know, there's also the crushing loneliness that no one talks about. When you leave, you often lose everything, not just the relationship, but the identity that you had inside of it. You lose the family members who took his side. You do. You lose friends who don't know how to support you or who blame you for not leaving sooner. You lose a version of your life, even if that life was painful. That grief is real, and you lose that, and it can be lonely. And in that grief, the thought of being alone, struggling, maybe even homeless, jobless, and completely emotionally exhausted can feel heavier than the actual abuse itself. It's heartbreaking, but it's true. And so many survivors stay because of the unknown that feels more terrifying than the pain that they've grown used to. And yet, here's society. That's what society keeps missing. Most survivors do leave, and when they go back, it's not because they want the abuse. It's because they're trying to survive. Sometimes there's no shelter in place. Sometimes there's no food. Sometimes Child Protective Services threatens to take the children if you don't have a home within a certain time frame. It's not about weakness or love or being naive. It's about surviving under pressure. The myth of just leaving erases all of this. It ignores the danger, it ignores the complexity and the manipulation. It ignores all the survivors have to endure every single day. Leaving is not the beginning of freedom, it's the beginning of the fight for freedom. So, what is a domestic violence exit plan? A domestic violence exit plan is a personalized strategic preparation that helps survivors leave an abusive relationship as safely as possible. It's not just about running. It's about creating a pathway that reduces risk and increases the chance of long-term stability and survival. An exit plan is a lifeline that allows a survivor to move from chaos into clarity. It's the roadmap that helps you navigate through the uncertainty, and through the very, very, very real danger of escaping a violent partner. Even if it's not perfect, even if it's incomplete, it's a powerful act of reclaiming control over your life in a situation where control has been taken from you. What makes an exit plan so vital? It's because it doesn't just protect your physical life. It protects your mental health, your emotional stability, and your freedom from the other side. When you've been living under someone else's domination, the idea of having choices can feel like a foreign concept. An exit plan creates choices. It lets you move in silence if needed. Gather what matters, prepare for emergencies, and protect your children. It gives you a sense of power when everything around you feels unsafe. It isn't just about the moment you leave, I'm sorry, it's about surviving the after that moment. Because surviving a breakup, it isn't the same as surviving abuse. It's not. There's a system that needs to be navigated, and a plan is your armor. That's your protection. A strong domestic violence plan typically involves identifying what items you'll need to take with you, like important documents, medication, cash, and essentials for your children. Even things like what are those things called? A security blanket. That's something that's very important to your child. And if you're going to be taking your child out into a situation where that's unfamiliar to them, they're going to need something that's familiar. So that's an essential need for your child. emotionally and mentally. It also includes knowing where you can go in an emergency and how to get there without alerting your abuser. It means getting copies of vital paperwork, finding trusted people that you can alert when you're leaving, and making sure that your phone or electronics aren't being tracked. For some, it's also about setting up new email accounts, memorizing important phone numbers, or establishing a code word with a friend that signals I'm not safe. These details might seem small, but they can be the difference between a clean escape and a terrifying confrontation. What's just as important as logistics is the emotional preparation. An exit plan forces you to confront your fears, your doubts, and your trauma responses, it makes you start to think about um, survival instead of being a hostage. It makes you think like a survivor instead of like a hostage. Because when we are in these situations, we're hostages. It empowers you to imagine life outside of violence, even if you can't quite get the full picture. It gives you an idea. It gives you something to look forward to, and that hope, however small it is enough to start building momentum. You don't need everything. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need the direction. You just need somebody to point you, or something, someone, somewhere to point you in the right direction. And the beautiful thing about about an exit plan, is it's yours. You get to decide what freedom looks like and how you begin reaching for it, one small act of defiance at a time. So here's a few tips for creating an exit plan. And the first is to assess your situation. The first step is to take an honest, unflinching look at your current situation. And that means recognizing the danger you're in, not minimizing it, not rationalizing it, not telling yourself it's not that bad. You have to be real about the type of danger that you're in. Abuse conditions us to downplay what we're going through in order to survive. But when you're planning to leave, clarity is everything. You need to understand what you're putting yourself up for, what could possibly happen. Ask yourself, how violent has it gotten in the past? How has the abuse escalated recently? Are there any weapons in the home? Has your abuser ever threatened your life or your kids or your pets, if you guys have pets? These are not just warning signs, they are red flags, and that demands strategic thinking and preparation. You also need to become familiar with your abuser's patterns. Abusers often follow predictable cycles: tension building, explosion, reconciliation, then the calm. Knowing how your partner moves, how they think, what sets them off, what actions that they take when they're likely to become angry, when they leave the house, what triggers their outbursts. When they leave the house, what kind of makes them go boom? Can you help choose? That can help you choose the safest window between it's time for you to go. So basically, look at their patterns and put all that together. Assess certain things about their when they leave. How long do they stay gone? If he or she or they attack you, and then they feel bad, that guilt comes, the honeymoon phase comes in, and then they go off to try to find something nice for you to do. Start calculating generally how long it takes before they come back, and everything that builds up to that moment and what happens after. Because that can help you choose the safest window to begin your exit. And you're not being paranoid, you're being smart. You're learning to anticipate the danger the same way someone might study a battlefield, or um, when an athlete or a coach makes the team study their opponents before they play against them in a big game, so they'll know which move to make, or at least have a better idea of what move to make. This is your opponent. You have to watch, you have to learn their moves so that you can make the right moves for your team. This knowledge isn't weakness, it's a survival tool. And right now, survival is the most important thing. Next is to build a good support network. No one should have to do this alone. And yet there are so many survivors that feel completely isolated when they're trying to leave. Abuse thrives in silence and secrecy. So one of the most powerful things you could do is slowly begin to rebuild connection. Think about someone you trust, not who you used to trust, but someone who has shown up for you recently. It may be a friend, a sibling, a neighbor, or someone online. You don't need to tell them everything at once. Sometimes it's just saying, I don't feel safe and I might need help soon. That might be enough just to start building a bridge out. At the very least, they may be able to connect you with a case manager or a caseworker that can give you some type of services who understands what this situation is and knows how to help you walk you through this in a more safe way. It's also essential to connect with, I just said that, advocates who understand domestic violence, shelters, hotlines, legal aid centers. These are all people trained to help you leave safely and discreetly. And honestly, advocates and shelters, they may have resources, financial resources, housing resources, tools that can help you when you are ready to leave. And if you're worried about being watched or tracked, establish a safe communication method. Use a friend's phone. Create a private email address your abuser doesn't know about. Meet in person if it is possible to do so. The key here is just connection. You're not a burden. You're not weak, and you are worthy of a team that helps you get free. So the third step is to prepare documentations and essentials. But once you decided to leave, you need to gather all essentials that will help you restart your life on the outside. This includes documents like your ID. Go to the DMV, get an ID, put it in a bag, birth certificates, get copies. Well, go to the wherever call of records or wherever you are, you have to go in your location or your city and get a copy of birth certificates for you and your children, as well as social security cards, health insurance papers, prescriptions, school records, immunization documents if that's applicable. Anything you need that will help you when it's time for you to start over. These might not feel urgent in the chaos of planning to flee, but once you're out, they've become everything. They will become everything: your identity, your access to services, your protection in court. If you have any court documents, if anything that you have that can help you when you are leaving, because I'm going to tell you right now, people are going to want to see ID, social security cards, birth certificates, school records. If you leave your social security card and you need to go get more for you and your kids, they're going to need proof that they're enrolled in school. They're not going to just go off of your ID. So there are things that you're going to need. If there are court orders for child custody, you need to take that with you. If you leave and get a temporary protection order or a temporary restraining order, have that with you. Don't just leave these items lying around where your abuser can find them. Hide them. Create a hidden stash, something discreet, somewhere discreet and safe. Maybe it's a bag tucked in the closet, locked in the box at a friend's house, or in a zip file with a password protected flash drive. So if you got to take pictures of them, whatever you have to do, include cash if you can, because cards can be tracked. I mean, cards can be tracked, but if you have the ability to, because not everyone have the ability to do this, go out and get a prepaid debit card, something from Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, one of those ones that are not linked to anything that he knows about, or she, or they, your abuser. Go and every time you have $10, $12, put it on that card. Put it on that card, because carrying a lot of cash around can be hard. Like if you're doing this over an extended amount of time, say if this plan is taking you about a year to do that, it's easier to have a debit card. You can book a hotel. You can do a lot more, but also have cash just in case you don't want it to be, that I would say have both. So not only just have cash, not only have a card, make sure you have something, and make sure you have any keys that you have, medication that you have, some extra clothes for you and your kids. And again, any type of security blanket situation. And that's not necessarily a blanket. Some people have a bear. Some people have a favorite pair of socks. Whatever it is, you make sure you have that with you when you leave. And if you can afford to, get a prepaid phone and a SIM card, or both. Put that in the bag as well. Every small piece of that you prepare is a lifeline to your new beginning. Even if you have to leave suddenly, having these things ready can make make your next step smoother, faster, and less terrifying. When I left to move to Alaska, I left my kids' social security cards, and I had to wait until they were enrolled in school before I can get proof that they were in school so that I could take it to the social security office to get there, because they'll take something from the doctor or something from the school. I didn't have either. It wasn't that big of a deal, but it could have been less of a headache if I would have had this plan together, and it would have been a lot smoother. It wasn't as terrifying, but having this can be so much easier. And then plan your safe escape route. Now that you have the what, it's time for you to focus on the how. Where will you go? Where will you go the moment you leave? If you don't have a relative or a friend who feels safe, start researching shelters or domestic violence organizations in your area that offer emergency housing. These places are more than just buildings. They are trauma-informed spaces that understand exactly what you're going through. And they can often help with food, transportation, childcare, counseling, housing. They can help you get into your own housing. Don't wait until the last minute to look this up. Know your options before you need them. And most of the time, even if a shelter is full, if you are in danger, meaning your abuser is doing something to you at this moment, they will make space for you. That is from personal experience. When I had to go to a shelter, I called them. I think I on my 365-day My Story, My Strength challenge, I spoke about a time when he tried to run us off the road. And when he did that, one of the places that I did call was the shelter. And even though they didn't have room for me, they heard me panicking and they heard that he was on the phone, and they made space for me. They even called me back to let me know that they were ready, and if I needed to come, I could come. So make sure you know your options before you actually need them. Also, think about how you'll physically get there. Do you have a car? Will someone be able to pick you up? Is there a bus route that your abuser won't expect you to take? What times of the day is it safest to leave? Is it safe to leave in the middle of the night? Like I said, that debit card can come in handy. Are you able to use that prepaid phone and order an Uber and have it pick you up around the corner? Are you able to be picked up while they're at work? The key is to choose a window of time when you can leave quickly, quietly, and without confrontation. Even if you don't have all the answers yet, start imagining a path. The visualization alone can help reduce the fear and increase your confidence when the time comes that you're ready to go. And the next step, safety measures during and after leaving. So once you leave, your safety work isn't over. It's actually intensified. You may feel the urge to relax, but please do not ever let your guard down. To believe the worst is over is not the case. Because when I did leave Alaska, trust and believe it, I'm going to say about 2-3 months later, he was right there at my door. Many abusers escalate their behavior after survivors escape. They might stalk you. They might manipulate your children. They might try to find you through social media or even involve legal systems to regain control. This is why you must take the extra step to protect your privacy. That can include changing your phone number, blocking them on social media platforms, adjusting privacy settings, and asking friends and family not to share your location. I don't have very good experience with friends and family, so I wouldn't even share my location with them. When I say that the best option that worked for me was when I was working with actual advocates and workers who understood the severity of the situation, and they made sure to keep my location very private, and that's where I felt the safest. Physical safety is also the key. If you've moved into a new place, change the locks immediately. If you're staying with someone, ask them to keep your presence private. In some cases, a restraining order might be necessary, not just for your physical protection, but to help with custody or school access, because they can come and pick your child up from the school. I mean, again, I talked about that on My Story, My Strength 365-day challenge, when he picked up my kids from school. And they told me, well, there's no court order, so we can't stop him. And if you're dealing with family court, document everything. Keep screenshots, police records, text messages, emails. The system isn't always on our side, but your evidence can be your armor that can protect you, because they cannot deny you if they see that this is what's happening to you. Protecting yourself doesn't stop when you walk out that door. It continues as you rebuild your life, one decision at a time. I mean, it took years after I left my ex-husband to finally, and when I say years, maybe 5, years of still fighting with him. After the adrenaline wears off, because this is like self-care and healing after your escape. So after the adrenaline wears off and the dust settles, a new kind of pain starts to show up, and that's the grief, the exhaustion, the triggers. You may begin to feel emotions that you didn't have space to process when you were in survival mode. Like you didn't have time to process shame, guilt, numbness, or deep aching like pain inside of who you are. Like I'm trying to think of a word for it. Lack of identity, that's what I mean. Not knowing who you are outside of this abuse. And this is normal. You've endured trauma. Your body is trying to recalibrate. It's not weakness, it's your nervous system trying to catch up to the truth that you're finally safe enough to begin healing. But you don't have to do it alone. Counseling, support groups, therapy, peer community, life coaches, um, anyone can hold you in a space without judgment. This is also the time to rediscover who you are outside of the pain. And I never had anyone telling me this when I left. Then I need to go to counseling, find peer groups for me and for my children. So this is not just for you. Your children went through this with you as well. So when you leave, you make sure you set something up for your children as well. Maybe you want to go back to school, start a new job, move to a new city. Oh, I love that one. Or simply learn how to breathe again without fear. Self-care doesn't mean spa days and candles. It means learning how to rest, how to say no, how to choose your peace when your mind is still wired for chaos. It means finding your voice slowly, one day at a time. You don't owe anyone a fast recovery. You don't owe the world a perfect comeback. You owe yourself gentleness. You'll survive. You survived hell. And now it's time to rebuild your version of heaven. So now I'm going to share with you some real life stories of people who have overcome abuse. One of the most powerful stories I've ever come across is that of Joyce Diskett Haskett. She's one of the people that I survived. I sent a shout out to on my survivor, my 365-day challenge. She is a brilliant Black woman who survived and a survivor who now uses her past to uplift and educate others. Joyce was a young mother living in fear emotionally and physically, controlled by her abuse. After enduring countless episodes of violence, trauma, and humiliation, she made the terrifying decision to leave. She didn't have a formal exit plan in place, no secure housing, no financial stability, but she was certain of one thing: staying in that situation would mean death. She left with nothing but her two children, nothing, and the trauma that had been stitched into her bones from being abused from her partner all these years, and in her to protect herself and her sons, she was incarcerated and for an act tied directly to her abuse, and an act she openly discussed today in her healing and advocacy work. Despite everything, she lost everything. But Joyce also found freedom behind bars. She found a home that she never had. Her story is now taught in academic spaces as a part of trauma-informed and criminal justice education. Leaving with nothing nearly cost her everything. But it also gave her a rebirth, one rooted in justice, healing, and truth. Another story, and a real example of, sorry again, it's the weekend, you guys. It's usually not even as bad. It's just because I'm doing this on Friday. I might have to change my days. Another real and raw example is Marissa Alexander, a Black mother from Florida whose case ignited national outrage. After years of abuse from her estranged husband, Marissa fired a warning shot into the wall. She's another person that was on my speaker shout out. And she fired a warning shot into the wall. No one was hurt. She did not shoot him. She was trying to get him to leave. But the system came down on her hard. She was sentenced to 20 years in prison under Florida's stand your ground law. Despite acting in self-defense of her children, she was still put in jail and sentenced to 20 years. Marissa's story is the epitome of what so many survivors face when they're trying to leave. Fear of violence, fear of not being believed, the fear of the legal system that often punishes Black women for defending themselves. She left that relationship with nothing, but the desire to protect her children and then she paid the price for it. But in this process, she also sparked a national conversation about domestic violence, race, and justice. After years of advocacy, public pressure, and basically a lot of support from the community, she was released and has since been a vocal advocate for survivors and prison reform. Marissa's courage to leave despite the impossible odds remains one of the most striking examples of how survival sometimes looks like resistance. We also have the unshakable story of Kimberly Motley, a Black woman who began her journey as a defense attorney and found herself representing a woman who'd been beaten, jailed, or silenced for trying to escape abuse. Her advocacy began in Afghanistan, but her roots were in the United States. As a survivor, she gave her personal understanding to what it means to be controlled, dismissed, and underestimated. Kimberly once shared that walking away from her own abusive husband with no financial backing and 3 kids wasn't just a risk, it was a declaration that she was done choosing safety over dignity. She didn't walk into a perfect life. There were struggles, evictions, judgments, and fear, but there was also a fire in her soul that told her that freedom was worth fighting for. Today, she not only defends human rights globally, but she continues to center survivors who've been failed by broken systems. Her work provokes that her work proves, oh my goodness, sorry you guys. Her work proves that sometimes the most powerful exit plan is one that begins with nothing but fierce self-belief. These stories carry a common thread. Each woman left with very little. Even each woman left with very little. No money, no guarantee for safety, no open arms on the other side, but each found herself in the ashes. They didn't walk away unscathed without a scar. They didn't get rescued. They built their new lives with trauma still clinging to their skin. But what they gained was a version of themselves that was no longer hidden, no longer silenced, no longer afraid. Their exits were not smooth at all, and the consequences were often brutal. But their choice to leave anyway was the first act of revolution. The biggest lesson of all of these stories is this. This is the lesson, is that sometimes nothing is the foundation of everything. When you strip away all the control, all the lies and manipulation, what you're left with is truth. And truth is the only thing strong enough to rebuild life from. So, one of the most consistent messages shared by domestic violence advocates across the country is this: you do not have to do this alone. Experts like Ruth M. Glenn, survivor and president of the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, stress the importance of creating a safety plan that reflects your specific situation. She's lived through the cycle of abuse herself and now works to educate survivors and professionals alike about how to identify red flags, plan safe exits, and advocate for systematic change. Ruth often emphasizes how survivors need access to both emotional support and practical tools, because without one, the other can just feel impossible to hold on to. She reminds us that surviving abuse isn't just about escaping a person. It's about escaping the system and the mindsets that keep us trapped in the first place. Another powerful voice in this space is Tamika D. Mallory, an activist and advocate who has consistently spoken about issues of domestic violence within Black communities. Her approach encourages survivors to stop waiting for validation from systems that were never meant to or built to protect us and start building networks within our own communities. She has repeatedly stated that the voices of Black women and women of color must be centered in the conversation, especially when it comes to navigating housing, instability, legal barriers, and lack of access to culturally informed care. Experts like Tamika and Ruth are now know that healing isn't easy and leaving isn't always clean, but they offer strength and language that survivors can use when they feel invisible or overwhelmed. If you're listening right now and you're wondering where you could turn, please know that there are real resources available to you. You know, you hear me talk about the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE, 1-800-799-7233, and you can also text START to 88788. So 88788 if calling is unsafe. They offer confidential trauma-informed support and can often help find local shelters, legal aid, and mental health support. I've used them. I really have. And their website, their website is thehotline.org. And it also has a live chat feature for those who need quiet, discreet support. They don't track your browser. They don't track your browser history and give you a quick. They don't track your browser history. There it is. And they give you a quick escape button in case you need to close the page fast. They've been doing this work for decades and they are really trusted by survivors nationwide. Another valuable tool is the My Plan app, developed by researchers and advocates at Johns Hopkins University. It helps survivors assess the danger in their relationship and make informed decisions about leaving. What makes this app stand out is its privacy. It's designed to be secure and low risk with safety features that allow users to hide quickly or even delete easily. The app also connects users to local and national resources, customized to your state and the zip code that you're in. For anyone unsure where to begin or too afraid to tell someone face to face, My Plan can be the first powerful uh, step that you take. In addition to national resources, many states and cities have local domestic violence shelters and coalitions. For example, womenslaw.org offers legal information tailored by the state that you're in, including protective order details and custody information. The YWCA, operating in more than 1,200 locations across the U.S., provides emergency shelters, counseling, and job training for survivors. You can also reach out to Black Women's Blueprint, a Brooklyn-based organization focused on ending violence against Black women and girls through advocacy, healing, and cultural response. These are real people doing real work grounded in the lived experiences of survivors like you and me. So there are a lot of questions that come up when it comes to these type of topics. And one of the most common questions that I get from survivors is, what if I leave and end up worse off? Well, let me tell you, that fear is real. And it's not paranoia. It's not drama. It's the voice of someone who has already been through it, hell. It's the voice of somebody who's already been through hell. And they can't imagine what comes after. And you may be scared. You may be. I mean, it's not even a maybe. You most likely will be scared. You won't be able to, you'll be scared that you won't be able to feed your kids. You'll end up homeless, that you'll never recover. And I'm not here to sugarcoat it. Leaving isn't easy. Sometimes it does get harder before it gets better. But here's the truth. Even in the worst of those moments, you will still have something. You will still have something that you didn't have before. You will have your power back. You will have the chance to breathe without being watched. You'll have you'll have nights without screaming, mornings without fear, not just survival. That's the first breath of healing. Another question that kind of breaks my heart is, what if no one believes me? So many of us stay silent because we know what it feels like to just be dismissed or called dramatic, or to be told, well, it seems like he seems like a nice guy. He seems so cool. Oh my God, I hate that one. But let me say this as clearly as I can. I believe you. I believe you. Even if your family doesn't, even if your church doesn't, even if the court doesn't, the abuse you experience is real. Your trauma is valid. You don't need bruises to be in pain. You don't need police reports to prove that you've lived what you've lived through. You're not weak for staying. You're not weak for staying. You were doing what you had to survive. And now you get to write the next chapter of your life differently. Your voice matters, even when it's shaking, especially if it's shaking. I also hear survivors say, I'm scared to be alone, and what if I never find love again? And that fear is also very valid and it's human. You've likely spent years being told you're unlovable, that no one else will want you, and that this was your only shot. But here's what I've learned. Loneliness is real, but so is peace. And the kind of love you're after, you'll find that love after healing. And that kind and the kind that begins with loving yourself. That's the kind of love that you're going to find after healing. So, that kind of love is nothing like what you're leaving behind. You're going to feel it. You'll learn to be happy on your own in your own home. You'll rebuild your heart on your terms. And one day, if you choose to let someone in again, it won't be out of fear, it'll be out of freedom. You are not too broken to be loved. You are too valuable to be mistreated. And finally, another question, the last question that I've had people say is, what if he comes after me? Which was my case a lot. And this fear is not irrational. It's a reality for many of us, which is why this episode isn't just about walking away. It's about It's about walking away safely. I left without a plan and I was lucky, but I'll never encourage someone to do it recklessly. Your fear is not weakness. It's not. It's warning. Let that fear guide you into creating a plan that honors your safety, your children, and your future. Don't let that fear paralyze you. Let it sharpen you. Let it sharpen your vision. You deserve to live without constantly looking over your shoulder. You deserve to be free. So if you made it to the end of this episode, I want to speak to you directly. I want to speak directly to your spirit. Whether you're still living in silence, whether you've already made your escape, whether you're somewhere in between, you are courageous as hell. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise. Just surviving day to day with living with that abuse takes an amount of strength that most people will never understand, never, especially those ones that say, why don't they just leave? They'll never understand what it takes for you to even stay. And even considering the possibility of leaving, even entertaining that idea that you deserve peace, that is an act of radical bravery. I know the fear. I know the fear and I know the exhaustion. I know that some days just getting out of bed is a miracle. So if no one told you this lately, let me say this to you. I see you, I believe in you, and you are not alone. Your safety is the priority, always. No matter how broken you feel things are right now, your life still matters. Your children's lives matter. The future you can't quite see yet is still waiting for you. And is it worth fighting for? Yes. Yes. Is it going to be hard? Yes. Yes, it's hard. Is it scary? Yes, it's terrifying. But there's something sacred in that moment when you realize that you've had enough, that you won't allow your life to be dictated by fear, shame, or someone else's cruelty. That decision, no matter how quiet or chaotic it may feel, is where everything begins to shift. Leaving isn't just about walking away from the pain. It's about walking towards your power, towards possibility, towards peace. And no matter how much you're leaving behind, you're also reclaiming something that no one ever had the right to take away from you ever, and that's yourself. So if this episode resonated with you, I invite you to share this story, whether it's anonymously, privately, or publicly. Your truth has weight. Your voice has value. And sometimes telling your stories is what helps someone else take their first steps towards freedom. You can reach out to me directly or connect with a growing community of survivors who are building strength out of shattered pieces. This platform was created for us. I created this platform for us, for those of us who have been silenced, dismissed, or underestimated for too long. Your survival is not just a story, it is a revolution. So I also want to invite you, if this resonated with you, to please subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Again, you hear me say it. I've said this throughout this episode a few times. I have a platform, a challenge that I'm on every day. Is it an hour long? No, between 10 to 20 minutes, depending on what my story looks like. But that is something that I use to help share my everyday struggles, where I go through a story that I've lived, how I got over it, and how I may even still be dealing with it to this day, so I can show you guys in real time how healing is not easy. I have other shows on my platform, Empower Voices, Find the Strength of Survivors. Subscribe to this. Every last Saturday of the month, you will hear me with my new co-host, Mr. All Love, on our Real Raw podcast, where we talk about real raw survival with guests who share their real, raw, unfiltered, unapologetic truth of how they are healing from some of the worst traumas that they have. There, it's already uploaded on my podcast or on my page, and you need to check out that first episode. We're thinking about doing this weekly, but as of right now, we're doing this every last Saturday of the month. It may not be uploaded to my feed until a couple of days later, but it will be live every last Saturday of the month. And on Sundays, Coach Kiss, she comes on every Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As of right now, it's going to be a scheduled change in January. And she is someone who has overcome and actually did leave her home, her abusive relationship, and she's living her real truth now. And she's someone who shares that truth on her show every Sunday, The Kiss Corner. Every Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you want to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss out on anything, okay? So before I close out, one last thing, check out my link tree. It's in my bio. There's so much more I do: blogs, events, my book, everything that I have, tools that I have, journaling that I have, journals that I have created from my lived experience that helps me and that will help you. Just check all that out. It's on my link tree in my bio. Please don't miss out on helping armor yourself with the tools that you need to survive this healing journey, because it's another fight. I'm going to tell you, it's not easy. And before I do close, I want to remind you that this is just the beginning. In upcoming episodes, I'll be digging deeper into topics like navigating the court systems, co-parenting with an abusive ex, and reclaiming intimacy after trauma. And actually, it's not in next episodes. I work with another young lady, Miss Ruby, and we have our own platform. It's actually a coaching co-op called PJ and Ruby's Healing Circle. And that's where we go into more specific details about reclaiming your life and who you are, your identity after trauma. We're also going to, I'm going to continue to add survivors to my show. I interview them every other week who've rebuilt their lives from ground zero, just like you're doing or want to do, one breath at a time. If you need more tools, I've got resources listed in my show notes, including links to shelters, legal support, trauma. It'll be in my link tree actually. And trauma-informed therapist. That one is me. And I'm not a therapist, I'm a coach. So you don't have to have it all figured out today. Just keep going, keep breathing, keep choosing yourself, because your story doesn't end in pain, it begins in power. And I usually say that on my daily challenge, but I think I'm going to incorporate that in this as well, because I want everyone to know that your story doesn't end in pain, it begins in power. As we close, I would love to leave you with a powerful quote from Joyce Dixon Haskett, one of the incredible women featured in this episode, a survivor, an advocate, a truth teller whose lived experience continues to inspire women and transform lives. She said, "I left with nothing but my truth. And that was the first time I realized I had everything I needed to begin." Miss Joyce Dixon Haskett. So you made it through the episode, and that's not small. That's all strength. And I'm so damn proud of you all. So until next time, take care of your heart and never forget you are worthy of peace, freedom, and joy always. Thank you for tuning in, and you guys have a wonderful, wonderful night. Good night. Enjoy your weekend, and happy 4th of July to everyone who's listening from the U.S.
Heard you looking for a hero. Well, look up. No more running from the bad guy. I'ma stare him in the eye like, what's up? I know the journey got hard for a minute, but I ain't giving this up. Yeah, I got the heart of a champion. If I get knocked down, I get